La di da di da 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 ba da ba da ba 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 ba. Yesterday, the Chiefs GM Brett Veach and head coach Andy Reid spoke to the media at the NFL Scouting Combine, and I want to dive into those. But first, how about those? All right, if you're watching this and love the Chiefs as much as I love the Chiefs, make sure to subscribe and turn notifications on so that you can stay in the know with daily news about our favorite freaking team, the Kansas City Chiefs. All right, I went ahead and I listened through these pressers from yesterday from both Brett Veach and Andy Reid for y'all and took notes to give you a summarized version of all that was said. So I hope you enjoy. Brett Veach was up first. He opens up the presser being asked about Orlando Brown Jr. and the franchise tag. He said that, yeah, it's likely we're going to have to work hard to get a deal done with him. He was asked about Tyrann Mathieu and said, after the Cincinnati game, we had a chance to talk. We communicated that we certainly love Tyrann and Tyrann loves being here. This is actually the start of that process now. So once the season ends, the coaches do their deal and we sit back and collect all the info, get with the coaches after they go through their scheme evaluations. We know once Indy rolls around, on one end, see all the great college prospects, but on the other hand, have an opportunity to talk with our players' agents and exchange info. So we'll start that process this week and hopefully everything ends in a positive direction. He was then asked about Brown Jr. and getting a long-term deal done, and he commented that these things take a bit of time. He noted on Mahomes and Chris Jones deals, then basically said by the start of this next season, they are confident they will be in a good place with Orlando Brown Jr. So I take that as it's coming, it's happening. He talked about visiting with players' agents at the combine, grabbing dinner, and that it's important to keep the lines of communication open, that it wasn't just specifically with Tyrann Mathieu's agent, but many of the team's agents. He was asked how hard it was for them to release Anthony Hitchens. He went on to say Hitchens is the true definition of a professional. He's first one in, last one out type of guy. He does everything the right way, and he's a valuable addition in the locker room. He said in their last convo with him, they did communicate something along the lines of, it's a strange world. We may even see you back in KC. Basically, Veach thinks another team is going to scoop up Hitchens and offer him more money. But if not, maybe, just maybe, we may see Hitchens back on some type of a veteran minimum or something with the Chiefs. Obviously getting paid a lot less, but who knows? He did say that Hitchens did a great job working with the younger linebackers and helping to develop them. He was asked about being aggressive this offseason and his thoughts on that with free agency, all that good stuff. Honestly, I couldn't really hear what was asked by the reporter, but I think it was about, being aggressive in free agency or trades versus the draft. And Veach pretty much said, we will always aim to be aggressive if that makes sense, but this is a good draft, a deep one with a lot of prospects. He said there's also value in accumulating as much young talent as they can in the draft. He was asked about Ryan Poles, who was the executive director of personnel previously with the Chiefs, and recently he accepted a job as the GM for the Chicago Bears, and what it was like working with him. He basically had nothing but praise for Ryan Poles. He said he's confident in his opinions, but doesn't have an ego, is a great communicator, and he will do a great job in his new venture. He was asked about some things he didn't know he'd be expecting when he took on the role he now has with the Chiefs as their GM. He answered simply, the late night phone calls. You love to evaluate talent and put a roster together, but it's a lot more than just watching tape, trying to do that and dealing with the cap guys. He says the players go through a lot. Their families, coaches' families go through a lot. He finished saying the thing that is most challenging for a GM is the things you don't expect and sometimes can take up a lot of your time. He then talked about how they accomplished things last offseason with the O-line, the problems they faced with rebuilding it, and how good they felt with the moves they made last offseason. He talked about remaining patient and waiting for the right trade, and that's when the Orlando Brown Jr. option presented itself. He was asked about Charvarius Ward and his thoughts about him in free agency. and he said, Ward is an excellent player and has accomplished a lot in his 4 years here. Early on, he showed how good he was on special teams, and over the years just continued to get better and better and better. He's certainly a guy, just like Tyron and others, that we are going to continue having conversations with. And he ended saying, I'd love to have Charvarius back. I like him. He fits the scheme. He's a guy they will be looking forward to spending a lot of time with these coming weeks. So I don't know. It kind of sounds like to me they're going to work really hard to get Ward back. But again, they're very well trained on how to deal with media, and they answer these questions pretty generically sometimes, so we will have to wait and see. He gives me more confidence personally with Charvarius Ward coming back than Honey Badger, but yeah, we'll have to see. His last question was about Byron Pringle, and he gave him similar praise as he did to Charvarius Ward, saying he's someone that continues to get better year after year, and they want to try to keep as many of these kinds of players as they can around, especially when you have a roster as talented as this one. All right, Andy Reid was up next to the podium, and I want to talk with you all about what he said. But first, if you're enjoying this video, could you do me a huge favor and hit that like button so more Chiefs fans can find this content? It really does help. Thank you so much. Okay, I've already released a video earlier this morning going into more details on what Andy Reid addresses first thing up. He immediately stepped up to the podium, said it's nice to see you all, but then addressed the situation about the article that surfaced about Eric Bieniemy. And if you want the detailed version on that, again, I released it this morning. Click the video above to see that. I did find it interesting to note because I was watching these pressers live yesterday via the YouTube channel. And hey, shout out to all of you that were commenting on that Chiefs live stream and saying what's up to me. That was really cool. But the Chiefs live stream on YouTube did not show that beginning part of Andy Reid. It went into just him directly answering the first question asked by the reporters. I actually saw this from Matt Verderame, just joking, Matt Verderame on Twitter. He is the one that posted it, and that was where I found that piece on Andy Reid. Anyway, the short version is this. Reid says the report that surfaced about EB was fabricated. He said, it's gotten kind of fabricated when we were on vacation, and all of a sudden we came back and found out that none of us get along, that EB doesn't like Mahomes, and that's not the case. We are all good here, and we are excited that he is back with us and rolling. He thought EB may have gotten a head coaching job and would have been happy about that as well, but that didn't happen, and they are happy to have him back. They actually signed him to another 1-year deal. And the assumption there is that it's with the hopes that he may get another shot at a head coaching job next year. Immediately after that, he opened up the floor for questions from the media. And I'm just going to be honest with y'all. Some of these questions that the media asked, I'm kind of guessing based on the answers that Reid and Veach give, because honestly, you could not hear a freaking thing about what they asked. So I believe his first question had something to do with the last few years, how he felt they are doing creatively, and the reporter possibly asked about bringing Matt Nagy back and his thoughts on that versus an internal promotion or bringing in someone with new, fresh ideas. Again, it's my best guess. He basically said, I think we've done okay for the last few years, but we are always striving to do better. He says it's important where Pat is in his career currently that it worked out that way, and my guess is he's referencing Matt Nagy coming back. He's got guys on staff that could have stepped in and also do it, but then he said they always have ideas. They are not short on ideas. He was asked about how he's liked his time in Indiana so far. He said it's been great. They went out to eat. Nobody was wearing masks. Restaurants were full. He's glad things are getting back to how they used to be. He was asked about our division rivals in the AFC West and his thoughts on, the new coach hirings and how competitive overall these teams are. Reid said, yeah, our division has some great competition. That's why the Chiefs are in this. We love the competition. He looks forward to facing the teams, again, given the coaching changes they've made, to also get better. He was asked about QB's hand size and his thoughts on the importance of that. He said, basically, he's less concerned about that and hand size and more concerned about how well they can actually throw the ball. He said there's been plenty of QBs that can play great football and may not have the biggest hands. He was asked about his thoughts on CEH and Jerick McKinnon's performance last year and how they battled through their injuries. He said, yeah, both of them had good years when they could play. Yeah, both were injured at some point. It's important they keep continuing to stay healthy as best they can and keep at it. He said they are both great kids with a ton of talent. He was asked about his thoughts on the Colts submitting to have the overtime rules changed, and Reid said, well, we've seen it go both ways in overtime. I mean, that's right. They lost to the Pats in the 2018 AFC Championship game in overtime when Mahomes didn't get a chance to step on the field. But then on the opposite side, they beat the Bills in the divisional game this year when Josh Allen never got a chance to step on the field. He said, so yeah, they've had an opportunity to take advantage of the current rules in the AFC Championship game against the Bengals, but they did not get it done. So yeah, they've seen it go both ways, and it'll never be perfect, but he said he's open to whatever the league ends up deciding to do. He's open to the change if they see it's needing to change. He was asked about Mecole Hardman and his growth as a receiver, and he said Mecole has worked hard. He saw growth, and it's paid off for him. They utilized his strengths and put him in positions to excel. He was then asked about Byron Pringle. He said he likes Pringle. He's a free agent now, but I sure do like him. He did a great job. He got a potato chip contract, so it worked out perfectly for him. And we all know Andy Reid loves food. And he was commenting on the fact that I think it was back in October of 2021, Byron Pringle signed a deal with Pringles, the chips. Yeah, you know, Pringles signed with Pringles, kind of clever. Anyway, he was then asked about off-season needs, and he said, in regards to free agents and stuff, who they're eyeing, he said, I can't get into it right now, but do not worry because Veach is on it. That's right. In Veach we trust. He then said they don't want to force issues, that they got to be careful and patient about how they fill the holes that are needed this offseason. I believe he was then asked about how he felt the team handled playing against the too high safety look as the season progressed, and he said they've recently started their scheme eval and are about a week into it, but he thought they did a better job as the season progressed, and they will continue to evaluate themselves on how to get even better from here. He was then asked about Veach and his ability to evaluate draft prospects and his growth with that over the years. He said, Veach is relentless and wakes up every day full of energy and is only getting better as time goes on. Yeah, Veach is the man. So glad we have him. He was then asked a couple of questions that honestly, I apologize, I couldn't hear, and his answers were so short I could not get context of them. But from there, he was asked about speaking at John Madden's memorial behind enemy lines, and he said it was a great honor to be there, and he was grateful for the contributions Madden has made to the game of football. He was asked about Tyrann Mathieu and said, quote, it's a matter of how all that fits in. Veach has to juggle all that, and we will see where it goes as we go into the future here. But we all love him, and I think that's important. So if I can interject my own thoughts here, that does not sound confident to me that he thinks Tyrann will be staying around, but I could be reading into his answer a bit too much. He was asked about the right tackle spot moving forward and thoughts on that, and he said Coach Andy Heck does a good job of moving those guys around, and they will make sure they have the best 5 in the right spots before the season starts. I mean, I feel like that's a given, but that was a funny answer to me. He was asked about the combine and how he liked it here, and he ended the interview basically saying, hey, I like watching these guys. I like being here. I just sit up there and watch them all while eating potato chips, and that makes him happy. Well, guys, that was a lot. So hopefully you found value and it was helpful to you. I really enjoy being able to do this stuff for you all, to put the time in to save you time. I will say this one was a bit difficult because I could not hear the reporters at all, but I did try my best. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and sub for more Chiefs content like this. I'm posting almost daily news about the Chiefs, and we'll be doing news like this all year long. So until next time, let's go. How about those